Bosses are of course meant to be difficult. It's not supposed to be an easy ride. And some difficult bosses don't feel that good. We're not talking about those today. We're talking about bosses that give you a rough ride and then you feel awesome after you beat them. You feel like patting yourself on the back, popping the bubbly, and dumping an ice cooler on your head because you're the only person playing. It's not like a team or anything, that's the point. They do that in team sports and you're alone. It doesn't matter. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 hard bosses that make us shout a victory cry. Starting off with Doom Eternal's Icon of Sin. Doom 2, great game. Last boss, something alright. They call it the Icon of Sin, but it's really just a texture, like a flat wall texture that shoots out little boxes that causes enemies to spawn. Even among FPS games, which often have pretty lackluster bosses, this guy sucks. So when it becomes obvious Doom Eternal is going to bring him back, it was pretty certain it was going to be an improvement. Like, there was really nowhere to go but up, you know? Now the Icon of Sin can actually move, and he's difficult. Also, the first version of the Icon of Sin was difficult for the wrong reasons, and this guy is difficult in a much more satisfying way. He just goes nuts on you, slamming the area with his giant fists, summoning fireballs to rain down from the sky, and of course summoning monsters and making things even more chaotic. There's so much going on at once, and the music is just at 100. So when you start shredding this guy's armor and exposing the meat and bone underneath, it's really satisfying. You might end up using up all your lives beating this guy, but man, it feels good when you finally put him down. At number 9 is Wolong Fallen Dynasty's Lu Bu. This is easily the centerpiece battle of the game. We've talked a little bit about Lu Bu elsewhere, but the devs clearly put a lot of love into this guy. At about the halfway point of this Souls-like, darker reimagining of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you run into the legendary warrior Lu Bu. This game is all about boss fights, and here you have to take this guy who, in most Dynasty Warriors games, is able to clear out entire armies single-handedly. And we're talking about a guy who's literally considered one of the greatest warriors of all time. Like, not just in this game. So it shouldn't be a big surprise he's kind of tough. Almost unfairly tough, even. This guy has so many attacks, and he's so fast that it puts nearly every other boss in the game to shame.
Red hair. It is rare that you desire blood so.
He's tougher than most bosses that follow him, and hell, he might be the hardest fight in the whole game. Just absolutely relentless fighter. He's constantly mixing it up between long range, close range, and it's just, it's hard. Hard to even get a read. And then after a while, he jumps on his horse Red Hair, which makes him even harder to beat. And drags the fight on even longer. Like, this guy 100% lives up to Lu Bu's reputation. And when I finally managed to beat him after dozens of attempts, I do not feel weird in any way admitting this. I stood up, shouted, and disturbed everyone else in the house. At number 8 is Metroid Prime's Omega Pirate. The Metroid Prime remaster gave me the chance to have a rematch with this guy, and it was a humbling experience, I'll tell you. The Omega Pirate is the boss of the Phazon Mines, an area that's already way tougher than anything that came before, and this guy is just as tough. Depending on who you ask, he may be the toughest fight in the game. Definitely up there with the final battle in terms of challenge. A few things make this guy a really tough foe. He can absorb and deflect beam weapons for one, which I happen to like beam weapons, so that kind of sucks. He's got multiple high damaging attacks. He's immune to damage. That promotes the fight, really. The only way to beat him is to destroy all of his armor plating. Once that's cleared, he turns invisible, though. Summons a bunch of space pirates that can only be damaged using certain beams. Yes, you have to use beams on the space pirates that you couldn't use on the Omega Pirate. Yeah. Then he appears over one of the 3 Phazon pools and starts regenerating his armor. This is the only part where you can actually do damage to him. And if you're too busy fighting with all the newly summoned pirates, which is, frankly, a likely occurrence, they take a while to go down. Then you have to go through the entire process of destroying his damn armor again to get another shot at hurting him. There's a few tricks with this guy that can make him a lot easier. Super missiles do wonders against him, but almost every other boss doesn't require much thought to take down. The game kind of gets players accustomed to just brute forcing things, but that does not work on the Omega Pirate. Metroid Prime is not the hardest game, but this is where it really stops messing around, and once you send him packing, you feel amazing. At number 7 is Dark Souls 3's Slave Knight Gael. The epic final boss of the Dark Souls 3 DLC may not be the toughest boss in the game. That honor definitely goes to Sister Frida. But anyone who manages to beat that boss is gonna let out a sigh of relief. Beating Slave Knight Gael, oof, way more hype. If you played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the epic location, the insane opening that I can't even begin to describe.
Still here.
And the amazing music that all come together to make this fight feel like the real conclusion to the Dark Souls story. This guy is just like your character, a wretch from the very bottom who struggled and scrambled their way to the very ends of the earth on a seemingly impossible quest. I mean, he's literally called the Slave Knight. He's an old man dressed in rags. That does not mean he is easy, though. This guy fights like a madman, going absolutely nuts on you with almost an overwhelming variety of attacks, alternating between magic and close-range combat, mixes you up and keeps you moving. At least the arena you fight him in is huge. It makes it a lot easier than it could have been, but it is not an easy fight. This is one of those Souls fights that sticks with you. It is epic. The music is amazing, and the boss itself is as tough as they come. And when you come out victorious, like I said, it's just hype. At number 6 is Metal Gear Rising's Senator Armstrong. Platinum Games may well be the all-time reigning kings of the final boss fight. They have mastered this craft of creating a satisfying final battle. Almost every single one of their games delivers in some way with the last boss. Even the lesser games have some amazing final bosses. They're not always super hard, though, at least if you're playing on standard. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance's final boss, though, woof, this guy is the total package. He is hard as balls, entertaining as hell, and has one of the best songs and the best soundtracks of gaming ever, period. Damn, this game is good. Like, in all seriousness, it is an all-around hype as hell battle that is going to challenge you, maybe even piss you off a bit, but you are going to feel like a frigging monster when you win. The final battle against Armstrong tests everything you've learned up to this point. You can't just attack him and hope for the best. You've got to get effective deflects in, some dodges, some really tricky timed slashes, and by the end of the fight, he's just going completely nuts. You're most likely to get killed, and he does so much damage with every attack. If you're not stocked up with healing items or going for like a no items run, the back half of the fight is just brutal. It's so good when you finally win, though. It's an all-around badass final battle, one of the best, easily, and it concludes this game so well. At number 5 is God of War's Valkyrie Queen Sigrun. As far as the God of War bonus bosses go, it could have easily gone to either the Valkyrie Queen Sigrun from God of War 2018 or Gael from God of War Ragnarok. There's an argument that Gael's the tougher one, but I gotta go with Sigrun for this one. She's the original bonus boss, and she doesn't have as many tricks as the boss from Ragnarok, but she's still crazy tough. We're not just talking difficulty here either. The presentation and build-up are just as important for a hype boss fight, and in my opinion, Sigrun's just feels a little more epic. I mean, Gael is just standing there while Sigrun bursts out of a portal to attack you out of nowhere. That's how you start a bonus boss. This completely optional boss can be found either by beating every other optional Valkyrie fight in the game, all of which are extremely challenging on their own, but Sigrun is basically all of them combined. That means she has all their worst attacks, she can pull them out at the worst possible times, and she's also just this massive damage sponge. No matter how tough you are, Kratos' attacks are gonna barely scratch her, so you have to be extremely aggressive, but also reactive enough to get out of the way. It's a fight that's both frantic and long, and that is an exhausting combination, to be frank. It does feel just so good when you finally manage to beat it, though. At number 4 is Cuphead's The Devil. Pretty much every boss in Cuphead is going to make you shout when you finally beat them. They're tough, but they're also like these kind of clever puzzles of action and balance that you have to figure out. I really love Cuphead's bosses. But obviously, you got to pick the final boss here. There's an extra layer of satisfaction knowing you didn't just beat any old boss. You beat the final boss in one of the toughest games out there. And, you know, it could be argued the penultimate boss, King Dice, is a tougher fight. When I beat that guy, I just let a long sigh of relief out, though. If you've seen that fight, you know how much of a nightmare it can be. The Devil, on the other hand, is just nonstop fun, and that also happens to be extremely difficult, and that gives it an edge in what we're talking about for this video, though. It's not a long fight. It is super intense, though, and some of the most creative and crazy animation in the entire game is in this one. By the end, you're jumping between tiny little platforms, struggling to stay alive, and when you finally beat him, it just feels like you've beaten the impossible in the most hype way possible. I know I keep using the word hype in this video too, but like I really have to say, we're really talking about those types of times where it's got to be really hard, but not necessarily the hardest. It just has to give you this certain feeling, and hype is absolutely the best description of it. The Devil in Cuphead, like what other word is there to say here? At number 3 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3's Zed. JRPGs obviously love their long-haul final bosses, but this guy takes it to the next level. It's one of the most epic encounters of all time. This fight can take more than an hour to finish, and I'm not exaggerating. An hour might be on the low side for this guy. It's completely nuts. And guess what? If you die, you have to restart the entire thing all over again. There's no mid-battle checkpoints. Normally, that would disqualify a boss from a list like this, but the presentation, the music, everything about this battle pushes it to near legendary status.
Try and resist. Great Mobius is dead. And then die.
It's hard to explain without just outlining the entire plot of the game, but everything has been building up to this final battle, and they really pull out all the stops to make it seem like the fate of the world is at stake. It's cinematic as hell, while being extremely challenging at the same time, which could be a big problem for people struggling with this fight, but for the lucky ones who manage to just barely hold on the entire time, like by the skin of their teeth, it is just an incredible feeling when you finally manage to put this guy out of your misery. At number 2 is Isshin, the Sword Saint from Sekiro. You can't have a list like this without bringing this guy up. In a game full of amazing bosses, this guy stands alone as both the hardest and the most hype by far. Like, it's not even a competition. But when he appears, it's kind of weird because you might not even remember who he was in the story. By the end of the fight, you're gonna remember him though. I know I did. The first time you fight this guy, you're probably just shaking your head like, how am I supposed to do this? What is happening? Then you fight him again, you do a little better, fight him again, you do even a little better still, and again until you finally get this guy's attacks down. It's a fight where, sure, someone who's a reflex master might do well from the start, but even players who aren't as skilled can slowly learn and adapt. It's extremely tough no matter how you shake it though. It's easily one of From Software's toughest creations, but the fight is over in just a few minutes and the load times are so short, so it doesn't take long to get back into the fight and try again. The moment where you finally beat him is just bombastic. Also, every boss in the game normally takes a final death blow to put down, but Isshin's such a badass, it takes 2, a worthy ending to one of the most brutal but satisfying bosses of all time. And finally at number 1, Devil May Cry 5. It's Vergil. Again, duh. It was all leading up to this fight. Devil May Cry 5, at least for now, is the end of the series, but it managed to go out on such a high note with one of the finest bosses in Capcom's long and storied history. And you gotta remember, Capcom built its empire on bosses. Mega Man, that's what that's about. The final battle against Vergil is everything you could possibly want from a last boss in a DMC or even a Capcom game. It feels huge, it's crazy exciting, and it's really challenging. Compared to something like a Souls boss, at least on standard difficulty, he's not the hardest thing ever, especially if you're not too proud to just use a gold soul to fully revive your health after you die. But he's by far the hardest boss in the game, and in my opinion, one of the hardest bosses in the entire series. He's so fast, aggressive, and majorly intelligent. He can counter almost everything you throw at him, and he's got a ton of attacks that he's constantly switching between. On harder difficulties, it feels like you're taking on another player rather than AI. He'll pull off combos and move more like a player did than exploitable AI. It's honestly kind of ridiculous how tough Vergil gets on tougher difficulties. It feels really good to finally beat him though, as Dante and as Nero. Devil May Cry will probably return someday, honestly. It's hard to imagine it won't, but if this is where the series ends, it's good to know it ended on such a high note. And guess what? I got a bonus for you here. Pizza Face from Pizza Tower, because, man, oh man, we haven't talked about Pizza Tower enough. So this guy probably sounds super bizarre, Pizza Face, but I'm not joking when I say that the final boss in Pizza Tower is one of the most ridiculously satisfying, difficult battles ever. It's technically 4 forms of escalating insanity, and while it's incredibly difficult, it's also just fun as hell. You wouldn't expect something so hype in this game that it frankly looks like a joke, but if I'm being honest here, it's amazing. I'm not just talking about the final boss either. Like, if you think Donkey Kong Country, Wario Land, and Sonic the Hedgehog combined sounds fun, this game is seriously, like, awesome. And this final boss is the ultimate Pizza Tower experience. So if you like your crazy final bosses tough with incredible music and unfathomable levels of hype, Pizza Tower is the place to go, especially concerning old school platform games. It's such a fresh experience just as a whole, and this final boss is, I mean, you can't see me doing it, but I'm doing the Italian, that's a good a pizza pie hand motion. Yeah. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.